Hello everyone. Welcome to my session on IoT data security. And my name is Anupam Chumal. I work as a security expert with Carried. And yes, let's dive into the session then. This is the abstract that I had provided for the session today. And the gist of the presentation, if I have to give you, is that there is an explosion of IoT devices. And then there are multiple ways in which you can get the data from the IoT devices into the backend. Now, 35 minutes, 40 minutes is a very smaller time to talk about such a vast topic, but I'll quickly try to give you a gist about the available IoT architectures and then give a specific example to make your understanding more clearer on the topic. And in the end, I'm going to talk about how cloud can be useful or how traditional cloud providers are providing IoT services, and how they can be useful for storing IoT data. Again, this, if you have attended my previous sessions in SDC, you would realize that I am a very security specific guy. Uh, uh, I have given sessions on traditional data center security, cloud security, ransomwares. This session is a little different. This is because the topic is relatively new. So I cannot explain security without the architecture here, and hence I'm going to talk about the architecture and security at various levels. Design in uh, security at design level, and each step how you can add security. So that's how we are going to approach this topic. Um, about me. So I work as a software security expert in Carried. So what is Carried? Carried is it's car and digital. It's a software arm of Volkswagen. It's a relatively new company, and the focus is to look at the software for the various cars under uh, Volkswagen brand. Cars like say Audi, Porsche, Bentley, and the likes. Um, Here I'm looking into automotive security, and yes, so you'd realize why this topic, because automotive relies on lots of sensors and collecting data from the sensors and doing some intelligent processing on that data. Prior to joining Carried, I was with Dell, and I was lead software security architect for a couple of products, wherein I have done end-to-end security, end-to-end product security, and overall I have around 18 years of work experience in storage, networking, and security domain. My personal interest is security for the network application or the cloud. I have a master's in computer science from IIT Bombay. So that's about me. Hope this motivates you to go till the end of this session. So let's look at the agenda now. The agenda of the session is first to look at the typical IoT architecture. So, what are the way? This is again not an introduction to IoT. I'm assuming that people who are attending this session have an idea about what IoT means and what are sensors and stuff like that. My idea is to actually explain typical architectures, and then so an architecture can have possibilities like a use certain protocols, certain backends, or devices can send message in a particular way. So out of those available options, pick one and focus on how you can add security or how you can do secure data exchange using that one particular protocol, right? The example that I'm going to use is MQTT and device Hive. And then we look at a popular cloud provider, Azure, to see how it provides IoT services. In my previous sessions, I had used AWS as an example. This time, I just, there is no favorite between AWS or Azure or, Google Cloud, GCP. I've just used Azure as an example to explain what kind of IoT services cloud providers provides, so that you can just see how a typical architecture is and how it maps onto a cloud provider. Uh, Again, as I said, this is not an introduction to IoT. And when I say storing IoT data securely, which is the title of the presentation, I mean security measures that need to be applied at all steps. So we will look at the architecture and we will see how security can be applied at different levels. Defense in depth is the whole idea of this presentation. Disclaimer: the views, thoughts, and opinions expressed in this presentation, for example, uh, uh, which protocol I'm explaining or which cloud provider I'm taking or things like that, there are solely my ideas. This has nothing to do with my employer or any organization committee that I belong to. Uh, Data that I've picked up from the internet, I made sufficient effort to highlight the references. In fact, I've embedded directly the URL in the links wherever I view something from the internet. Right. Again, this is complete. No company data is shared here. There are no marketing slides. This is completely it's a practical session on IoT architecture and IoT security. So with that out, let's jump into the topic and let's look at architecture. So IoT architecture, net at a higher level, you have sensors, you have uh, connectors or protocols that are used to receive data from the sensors. And now, since you have sensors, you have protocols to collect data from the sensors. You need a broker, a messaging broker that will help these sensors talk to the backend. And then you have a backend, right? So sensors, protocols, uh, messaging broker, and the backend. This is a typical architecture. Now, in architecture diagrams that you see online, or there are different papers available. There are 3-level architectures, there are 5-level architectures, and so on. I would say you can focus on 3 layers, and that is sufficient to get a good understanding. Right? I have just made a diagram out of this, that there's a perception layer where the sensors are sitting. So, say for example, a car. A car will have multiple sensors in it, and those sensors will be sending data to the backend. The whole idea of sensor keeping sensors is to get live feed or getting information about various parameters that you want to measure. So, for example, in a car, you want to measure the tire pressure or fuel consumption or the speed, acceleration, stuff like that. So, those sensors would be measuring data, and they would be sending data to someone who's going to analyze the data. So that sending is done by a protocol. So you need a protocol so that the sensors can talk to the backend. Now, when multiple sensors, and a car may have say 100 sensors, 200 sensors, and then there are thousands of cars running on the road, such connected cars running on the road. By the way, the same concept applies to in industrial automation, or say a aeroplane will have hundreds of sensors, and a typical aeroplane would generate uh, terabytes of data every day, and all that data has to be communicated via a messaging protocol to some backend. Now, when thousands of sensors, thousands of cars generating data and sending, then you need something called a message broker that lets these sensors talk to the backend effectively. So then there is a network layer where you have the message broker, and then you use different technologies like say Bluetooth, Wi-Fi, 3G, 4G, etc., to send these signals or this information to the backend. Then you need a backend storage, and you also need applications that will do kind of information extracting from the data that the sensors have generated, right? So these are the typical layers that you have. And now let's try to break up each layer and try to understand what these layers are providing and how you can add security to the layers and which of these layers can sit where. So as we proceed in the presentation, it will come to you naturally. You will hopefully you will start realizing, okay, this is a typical thing that is independent of the storage, This is something that a cloud would be better to support, and things like that. I am not talking about perception layer or sensors. It is a vast topic, not relevant or immediately relevant to today's session. So I'm skipping the perception layer. But what are the steps of designing an IoT infrastructure? Let me emphasize on this for a while. You have to choose a communication protocol. So I said we have sensors, and these sensors communicate with the backend. So you need a protocol for the communication. Now you can't use standard protocols which are available. We can't use standard protocols which are available because they are designed for typical computers which have enough resources like memory, hardware, bandwidth. These sensors might not have the necessary memory, might not have the necessary hardware, and they might not even have good internet connectivity. For all you know, a plane which is flying at 35,000 feet high, it might have zero connectivity, and it would be buffering all the sensor data which it would be pushing in one shot when it lands, or comes into range. So uh, choosing your communication protocol is the first step. Then you choose a broker for your communication protocol. So there are, just like there are multiple communication protocols, there are multiple brokers available to manage your communication protocol. So that's the thing. Uh, to design an IoT infrastructure, you need a communication protocol. You need to decide on the broker. Then you need to decide on the backend. And in during the presentation, I'll pick a communication protocol, MQTT, right now, and then I choose a broker. And using that communication protocol and broker, I'll say how you can design an effective IoT network securely. Uh, Choosing a backend, it's either a cloud or a traditional data storage, and you have to get authentication in place. So, what do you mean by getting authentication in place? You have sensors sending data to the backend via communication protocols and through message brokers. How does a message broker know that who is sending the message? There might be a fake device trying to send messages or fool the system. So in that case, authentication is important. That's a layer of security that is needed. And again, even though the presentation would delve into IoT infrastructure, the the key mantra is security, security, and security. I'll give an example of an Abbott pacemaker recall that happened in 2017. There are very recent examples also, but I'm specifying something that is close to the heart, literally. So these pacemakers, attackers could actually access the pacemaker and run the battery dry by running it continuously. So if the pacemaker battery goes down, uh, it's obviously risky for the patients, or it can set the heartbeat rhythm faster. That is again faster or slow. That is again bad for the patient. So they had to recall the pacemakers which are there in the market. The ones that were already installed, a firmware upgrade had to be done for them, right? So the sensor security or security for especially in IoT infrastructure is really important. Imagine that there are IoT sensors that are monitoring a power grid, and suddenly you send a surge of electricity when it is not expected. What will happen to the entire grid will collapse. So that's why this IoT security is paramount. You know, another recent hack that I want to highlight is a Tesla car hack. So in that hackers, this is what demonstrated in a safe environment. It was not like the Jeep, Charlie Miller attack, not the Jeep attack kind, but here they flew a drone on the Tesla car, and they could remotely open the doors of the car. And this is because of a vulnerability in a software package that is used within the car, right? So these examples are sensor specific. Again, I skipped the perception layer or the sensor layer, and here the examples are sensor specific. But the the thing was to get you interested in the topic and to make you realize why security is so important in designing IoT infrastructure. So the presentation is not only focused on how cloud is efficient and good for IoT infrastructure, but also how security is vital, how to provide security for an IoT infrastructure, right? So let's jump into protocols. It's a long session, and time is of the essence. So IoT devices normally have low resources and hence they cannot use the traditional protocols, which I explained at the first start itself. So you have different protocols available for IoT, and as you proceed, you will understand that in detail. But they are broadly classified in two categories. There are data protocols, and then there are the network protocols. So data protocols are actually running at the application layer, and data protocols are the protocols that are actually used to exchange data. I'll give an example of MQTT. So MQTT is a pub sub, which I'll explain in detail later, but it's a publish subscribe kind of a protocol wherein you have topics and um, there are senders who will subscribe to publish to a topic, and then there are clients or receivers who will receive from that topic. So pub sub model. So that's where the actual information is exchanged is happening. So for example, signal to open the door of the car, or you want information about acceleration, or you want information about fuel going below a certain level, or tire pressure going under a certain level. So that is a kind of information that say the sensors will publish, and then the receivers, like say there's an application in the backend that is constantly monitoring the acceleration versus fuel consumption. So that application will subscribe to this information and pick information from there. So that is the data protocols. And as the slide says, they enable exchange of data, um, whereas the networking protocols work at the lower layer. So the network protocols are the actual protocols that are used to connect the device, and they are either working at the short range or wide range, like Bluetooth, Zigbee, Wi-Fi, and stuff like that. So we will be focusing majorly on application layer data protocols, and then there are various protocols available like MQTT, WebSocket, XMPP, HTTP, and I will specifically focus on MQTT as an example. MQTT is one of the hot favorites, used in the industry right now, and I've just chosen MQTT, because I've been using it. So just as just to summarize the previous slide, IoT network protocols are for connecting medium to high power devices over the network, and data protocols are used for connecting low power IoT devices. Right? Again, the same differentiation. For example, Bluetooth and Zigbee and all are popular IoT network protocols, whereas MQTT and XMPP are some popular IoT data protocols. So let's pick a IoT data protocol and let's get started. Uh, First, let's complete the picture. So we have seen that there are different kind of protocols available. There is data protocol, there is network protocol, and in the data protocol, we have picked MQTT for further analysis. Now you need a message broker. The message broker is the processing engine that stream events and commands across devices. So when you are sending messages, you are receiving messages, all that management is done by a message broker. The publish subscribe is all managed by the broker. The broker registers a topic, and then it registers who all are subscribing to that particular topic, and it sends messages to all of them as soon as it receives a message on that topic, right? So um, so message brokers implement a publish subscribe model, where subscribers receive message sent to the broker by the publishers, right? So basically, again, the same thing. Sensors, say for example, publish, and then the backend application subscribe and they receive messages from them, right? So, uh, I'm running slow on time. Okay. Now there are different IoT data types. So IoT generates data like device status, metadata, and sensors reading, right? The data may be structured, semi-structured, or unstructured. Now, when you have sensors sending in temperature, it might be a very small field, whereas some cameras would be sending images that you want to process and detect a subject. Now, in such cases, it is difficult to design a single storage system that fits all, and that's where the cloud comes into picture. So, if you use the if you look at cloud storage, like say AWS's S3 buckets and Blob and all those things, it provides you different storage models, like structured for unstructured storage, wherein you can have multiple ways of storing backend data, and then you don't need to have traditional IT would have a storage solution designed for a specific need. For example, say storing an Oracle database. Now, when you have this much of complexity or this much of mix and match possible, cloud is the best solution. And again, why cloud is the best solution? You may have a car that goes across countries. When it is driving across Europe, it is going across countries. Now these sensors would be transmitting data in real time. How would you capture this data and send it to your backend, common backend? So because cloud is everywhere, in the sense it is across regions, it can you can send data to the cloud even though your sensors might be moving across regions. You know, say for example, plane going through one country to another. So also you pay as you use. So right now, say for example, you do not know how much your application is going to grow. So you start with something small and then you start growing, and then accordingly you use more storage in the backend. So that is another reason why when you have such high this different kinds of data possible. So as I give an example of lots of pictures or videos that cameras are taking, and then you want to find a particular subject in that, you want to do some analysis on the pictures. Cloud is the best solution because you dump things into the cloud, and it may be coming across regions. The cloud is anyway spread across geographies, and then you can do better analysis and stuff. Storage. Sensors normally have poor data storage, and hence they need some backend storage. That is for sure. And IoT devices are generating large amounts of data. So I gave an example of an aeroplane. Typical aeroplane would be generating terabytes of data daily, and you may not be able to push data immediately. So there'll be spurts of at times. So these IoT devices may have to buffer data also. So this is just to give an example that you can't have a IoT device that is just for that is just for transmitting. You may also need local storage in such cases. And continuing with the example, as I said, cloud is elastic and ubiquitous. Hence, the backend can scale as needed. So suppose you are adding more cars to your fleet, then you can just scale the backend, and planes going across countries and sensors sending the data. You can receive real-time data in another country. Say you may have moved from Asia to Europe and back. So the data is still fed into the cloud, although the plane might be in Asia or in Europe. Um, Now, again, there is another catch. For real-time data analysis, there is a concept called fog computing. So that is another concept of storage, wherein you cannot be using this typical model. So what happens in the typical model? The sensor talks to um, the in between broker, and then the broker sends the information to the backend and to the application sitting in the back. So when you want to do quick analysis, you use fog computing, which is the next part. So fog is also called edge computing. There are differences between fog and edge, but for this presentation, I'll take it as a single term, fog or edge computing. So IoT is generating huge amount of data that needs large network capacity to push it to the backend. Terabytes of data, if imagine your sensors are generating, say you have hundreds of cameras, and these cameras are all looking at a particular area, and those cameras are generating data that is going to the backend. Now, if you push that much of data, it takes time to get to the backend. Also, it takes time to process and analyze the images. So what fog computing or edge computing basically is doing is, it takes all that data, and there is an intermediate hub, right? An intermediate gateway that is doing some processing on it, and the data that it needs for historical reasons, that it needs to store at the backend, that data it transmits back to the backend. The rest, it is doing all the analysis at the edge level itself. You know, the example of the cameras is perfect because the cameras would be generating terabytes of information, or same if even if not terabytes, gigabits of information, and you want to have a specific frame out of that image. and your application. So you have to push that application intelligence into this gateway or edge devices, and then they look at all the images. From there, they pick up a frame, and then only that part is pushed into the backend, right? So that is another concept that is picking up ground. But again, the sensors or edge devices should be able to support that kind of processing. We looked at the start that most of the sensors have poor resources like memory or CPU processing power. So your device should be capable of doing edge computing. But if it can do edge computing, then it frees up the network resources and the backend storage resources. Also, you can do things in real time, like image processing in real time, right? The difference between the fog and edge computing is that the fog pushes intelligence to a IoT gateway, while edge computing pushes it to the actual PLC level, right? So that's the difference. But the concept net is that you move the decision making to the edge nodes so that it frees the bandwidth of the network, and it frees does not use that much space in the backend, right? So with that out of the way, now let's jump into device Hive and MQTT, right? So what is MQTT? So messaging, queuing, telemetry, transport is a full form of MQTT. Is a messaging protocol for IoT devices. It is a low power protocol. Uh, it is used with devices that have limited resources like network bandwidth and processing and stuff like that. Now, the whole concept of the protocol is that you have, like I've explained earlier in brief, you have publishers and you have subscribers. So, for example, there is an application assumed sitting in the cloud or in the backend that is looking at fuel consumption, and depending on the tire pressure, and it will send an alert depending on the tire pressure going below a certain level. So there is a sensor in the tire that is measuring the tire pressure, and this sensor and this application are both registered to the same common topic at the backend, right? Now what happens is, as soon as the sensor that pressure goes down, the sensor will publish a message to a topic. Now these are called topics that are used for communication. It sends a message to a topic, and the broker in sitting in between make sure this message is sent or broadcast to all the people who have subscribed, all the applications that have subscribed to that particular topic, right? Another example is, so how does a topic look like? The example that I've given, say building 1, floor 2, room 5, and light. So you can subscribe to a specific topic like that. So whenever there is a light on or off, a message is sent on that particular topic. MQTT also supports wildcards like hash and question mark. So I'm not going to the detail of those wildcards, but it has security implications. Somebody subscribing to something like a hash will be able to publish and subscribe to all the topics in that particular range, right? Now the connection between the sender and the receiver is handled by a broker. It's the sender and receiver don't need to know each other, and that is why the protocol or the data portion of the protocol exchange becomes lighter, right? In, say for example, traditional TCP connection needs to know the source and the destination, the source MAC, the destination MAC, the source IP, the destination IP. Here, you just need to say, hey, switch on. You don't care how many people have subscribed to it, how many applications have subscribed to it. You just publish a message. You need to know your broker. You publish the message to the broker, and the broker just takes the message and then broadcasts it to the necessary parties, right? Uh, Use cases are like connected cars, the whole example that I'm giving about tire pressures and acceleration. Industrial IoT, where there are industrial sensors that are monitoring various stages of production, temperatures, pressures, and other things like that. And another thing that I wanted to highlight is that MQTT uses TCP. Because the ordering requirement is there in MQTT. What is ordering requirement? So MQTT, I cannot go into details of MQTT, again, time constraints, but MQTT provides you QoS. You can say QoS level 0, QoS level 1, and QoS level 2. Basically, how many times a particular message is delivered, if you get acknowledgement for a message or not. When you're giving that kind of guarantees, you need to use TCP. So MQTT rides over TCP, but the TCP implementation has to be done by the device The sensor is going to provide the message to the device, and then the device is just going set to send it to the broker, and it's the broker's responsibility to distribute it to all those who have registered for that particular topic. Uh, MQTT client must establish a TCP connection to the broker, like I mentioned. Um, it 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 is smart enough to cope with unstable network connections, like broker buffering incoming messages for disconnected clients. Like I gave an example of a plane going at a very high altitude, going out of range, and then suddenly it's sending a burst of signals. So MQTT is specifically designed to handle such situations. Some popular brokers for MQTT is, say, Mosquito, RabbitMQ, HiveMQ, or DeviceHive, right? We know what a broker is. A broker is the one that connects the sender to the receiver, right? Senders and receivers don't need to know each other. And the broker's responsibility is to manage the various topics and to make sure people who registered for a topic get the message, right? Now, uh, we have picked MQTT, and now let's pick Device Hive as a MQTT broker. Again, it's a messaging protocol for data movements between IoT devices and enterprise systems, or rather business logic that is running in the backend to extract information out of the signals that are coming in. Device Hive allows device connections via REST API, WebSockets, or MQTT. So again, you're picking a messaging broker. You need to ensure that the protocol that you've selected is supported by the messaging broker. It consists of communication layers, control software, and multiple platform libraries. So this is how the web page of Device Hive looks, and here you can see that Device Hive on one end is talking through to devices using various protocols like MQTT and REST APIs. It has an admin control wherein you can manage topics and apply ACLs to various topics, access control list, and then you can visualize the kind of traffic that is happening by using a Grafana frontend. Right, there are plugins and other things available. And the typical example would be, say, a mobile phone. You are trying to control the house air conditioning using a mobile phone. So the mobile phone would be sending a message to the message broker saying, "Turn on the AC," and the AC is subscribed to that particular topic. It receives the message and it turns on the AC. And suppose the so this is a bidirectional communication, again an important aspect. So the AC temperature reaches, say, 20, or it has managed at 20. It sends a message on the broker saying temperature 20. At that time, the mobile might want to shut off the AC. So it might send a message saying shut off, and the AC will shut off. So this is an example of a typical IoT setup that you can develop using MQTT and a message broker like Device Hive. Now let's jump into the security aspect. Yes. So the common security issues with MQTT, and the basic issue is that they provide MQTT and many of the brokers provide good fine-grained access control by user in topic. But the issue, in which I've highlighted many of my previous presentations also, is about misconfiguration and leaving things to default. So you have default login credentials, you have no password protection for the web interfaces, and then attackers can scan your system, use the default credentials, and get access to the system. An attacker only has to subscribe to a default hash, and they have access to your entire system. So again, fine-grained access control should be utilized, which is provided by the system. Say, for example, subscribe to wildcard hash can let you publish and subscribe to any topic available, right? Majority of the issues are avoidable if you configure things properly, right? Uh, you can see many of these poorly connected servers online. So you can just go to Shodan, which is an IoT search engine, and you can search for IoT devices which are available in abundance. You can just log into any of these IoT devices if they are poorly configured and subscribe to hash. So how do you secure MQTT? You do client authentication. Most brokers can authenticate using client IDs, usernames, and password. So if you use username, password, and if it is transmitted in clear text, then you can do man in the middle attack. So make sure that you are authenticating the client using something like certificates. Restrict access to topic using usernames or using certificates. And then you have to secure the channel. So the device sending information to the backend, make sure it runs on a TLS connection so that the devices in the messages are encrypted. Payload encryption has to be done at the application layer, but that again needs specific application intelligence. MQTT broker, you should select a broker that supports TLS with client certificates. It should support authorization while using a database, and you should be able to scale horizontally and vertically. It should be clustered and multi-threaded, stuff like that. Of course, it should support the latest MQTT implementation or latest implementation of whichever protocol that you are planning to adopt for IoT architecture. So again, we are running short of time, so I'll quickly jump into the Azure IoT. And so, having seen all this infrastructure, you know that there is a protocol, then there are brokers, and there is a backend. And let's take a look at how Azure provides IoT support. So if you look at Azure, it lets you have something called a cloud gateway. This is basically your gateway or your message broker, you can say, that talks various protocols. It supports MQTT and the likes. And then it takes the data and it provides in that data in the backend, and then it provides lots of logic or AI or other processing applications which are available that can take action on the data that is coming in, right? And then there are multiple components available in Azure IoT. So you have IoT Central, you have IoT Hub, there are digital twins, Azure Sphere, Azure Maps. But I'll focus on only on two right now. I'll focus on the IoT Hub. So IoT Hub is used for providing bidirectional connection of IoT devices to the application to the Azure cloud. Uh, so there are millions of devices can simultaneously connect to this IoT Hub, and it can support millions of events per second. It can authenticate the IoT devices that are connecting to the hub, and it can talk to these devices and protocols like HTTPS, MQTT, and things like that. It maintains device monitoring, and it can alert if or send a warning email if something happens. So for example, a device is sending lots of messages, so something is wrong with the device, and it can send an alert, right? So if you see, again, it is acting like a broker that is supporting multiple languages, and it is supporting multiple authentication methods. So this is what I've been the picture that I'm trying to paint. IoT architecture, uh, uh, and how to secure that in MQTT and a broker, what would be needed to secure it, and how Azure provides that security. And this, I'm sure AWS would provide a similar kind of thing. I've taken Azure as an example. IoT Central is a set of services which are provided, software as a service, I would rather say, that lets you develop applications faster that can utilize the data that is coming in. Right? So as it says, rapid development of secure enterprise grade IoT solutions, right? It is making it easy to connect, monitor, and manage IoT assets at a scale. So basically, it provides you a view wherein you can actually connect to the IoT hub. So if you see here you have the IoT hub on the left side, and then all the processing and functioning that is happening is actually happening at the IoT Central. So in IoT Central, you will have templates wherein you can say, okay, for this device, take this flow, right? So all that is provided by the IoT Central, and it has APIs and other things available. It is easy to bring up an IoT application quickly. It can analyze large number of streaming events, and it lets you visualize and store services using Azure Time Series Insights. So net. Then there are other things which it provides, like IoT security. Then, if you remember, I spoke about edge or fog computing. It has IoT edge device support also, and then it can do data analysis on the data that is coming in. So, if you look at the picture again, you had IoT sensors, you had messaging, you had brokers, and you had backend. And then I said why cloud is good in such a setup. And then I mentioned about how what are different protocols, or what are kind of brokers, what are kind of backends, what are the kind of data that has been generated, and how you can add security here. Then I took a specific example of MQTT and device hive, and using that I explained what typically goes wrong in an MQTT setup, or say a device hive setup, and how cloud providers provide support for the IoT infrastructure. So right from communication protocols to brokers like a IoT Hub, Azure IoT Hub, or application templates wherein you want to quickly do some intelligence. So for example, you want to write an application that looks at these sensors and then generates a trigger or something. IoT Central would let you do that rapid application development. It's like a RAG tool for IoT devices, right? And then it provides security solutions for IoT devices, and it also lets you do edge device management and computing and stuff like that. There are lots of things that I've added in references, but for example, the first one is specific to an example using MQTT and a message broker, wherein you can take a Raspberry Pi and develop an IoT ecosystem. The second is about MQTT vulnerabilities, how attackers found how Avast basically did a survey of all the security vulnerabilities, and they've come out with best practices and stuff. Um, the third is about Amazon. So the presentation used Azure, but just to balance out, I'm giving the best practices for IoT by Amazon AWS as the next link. And then there are some good papers. One paper is about the T-Bone or the Tesla hack, and one paper is about all the different protocols available for IoT communication. So that's it. I hope you enjoyed the session. Thank you for attending my session. Hopefully, I'll see you in future sessions in SDC. Thank you very much. And please do rate this session. This is really important for us. So thanks again for attending, and hope to see you all soon. Thank you.